Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. This morning I'm looking at a book which has come to us from Informa Law, part of Routledge and part of the Taylor and Francis group. This is actually a book in the Maritime and Transport Law Library series. A very important series of books and extremely helpful to all of us as practitioners, academics and people involved in that particular area of work. The book is called International Trade and Carriage of Goods, this book here. It's been edited by Baris, Soyer and Andrew Tettenborn. It's available as an ebook, and as I've indicated, it's an important area for anybody in that maritime studies. Elizabeth and I talked about the book, and for our book review, which is on the web and in the journals, we've given it the title Timely Commentary on International Trade and Carriage of Goods by an Expert Team. And that's exactly what you're getting here, as to be expected from Informa, who are the highest standard, and this is where the law is to be found, putting it bluntly. This is the front cover. It's a hardback. That's the spine. You can see the mention of the Maritime and Transport Law Library there, and you can see it's Routledge with a nice logo at the bottom. This is the actual Law Library series. You can see it there. And then you can see the additional one. So it's a growing law library, this one. And these are important books, without any question. We're dealing with a lot of money as well. There's the front cover there. Then we go into, that's the detail about the ebook if you're interested. Then you've got the contents sections there. The various chapters running through. It's split into various parts, ending up with Part 4, and then chapter 16 is right at the end, and then you've got the appendices at the back together with an index, and then the biographies of all of the contributors. Some very important people here. You can see the large number of people who are involved in contributing to this publication. I can't go through all of their names, but I'd like to thank all of them individually by just showing their names for thanks for what they've produced. The index is pretty short. There's the index actually at the back, and it is by page numbering, the index. So that's where we are with the main book itself. There's a foreword by Mr. Justice Males, which is worth reading. Then there's a very useful preface to set the book stall out. Then table of cases, which you've got listed. And then after that, statutes and statutory instruments nicely covered. And then we get into the chapters. What is a reasonable contract of carriage for CIF, CIP purposes? And then we go to the Sale of Goods Act 1979. And you can see the book is structured in the following way. You've got paragraph numbering, and you've got the footnoting there, and that runs all the way through. Just take it in the middle, you can see again how it's structured there. As I say, the book runs to 400, just under 400 pages, around about that. It's a hardback and a very, very important book, without any doubt. So what do we say about it? Well, we say this. An engaging approach to the research and writing of a legal text. This book is a product of Swansea University's 11th annual Commercial Law Colloquium, which took place in September 2015, so it's a year since. It's basically a year on that I'm reviewing the book. It was held on the auspices of Swansea's Institute of International Shipping and Trade Law, and notable as a firm fixture in the commercial law calendar. So that's where it has grown from. It was born by that colloquium. And it's been recently published by Informa as part of their Maritime and Transport Law Library, which is quite a substantial collection now of publications where the law actually is. And the editors, both that's Baris, Soyer and Andrew Tettenborn, have also contributed to at least half a dozen previous titles, so they are not newcomers to this Law Library series. And this volume contains work of a distinguished team of international contributors, some 15 in all, with all of that, a formidable and varied roster of credentials and specialisms in the field, which are set out in quite a lot of detail at the beginning. And as I've said before, this is actually where the law is found, and these publications make our lives a great deal easier as judges, practitioners and academics, because it's actually where the law can be sought. So you've got some idea of what the legal principles are and what the different views are from the case law, the statutes and everything else. Fortunately, the editors have offered a couple of wry and reassuring comments on what they refer to as the fog of commentary on the law of carriage and international trade, much of which is somewhat opaque. I couldn't agree more with you. For my bar exams, I actually took the paper on international trade, and I would say it is somewhat opaque, and I do understand some of the difficulties, because you're actually only scratching the surface sometimes with some of the problems, and they're fascinating, but boy, they really can be difficult. Now, Swansea University, the authors say, make no bones about its aim to break the mould. I've heard that one before somewhere else a few decades ago. This book is the result. It offers a compendium of expertise across a wide spectrum of topics, delivered in a clear, accessible style, which for the hard-pressed practitioner is a singular benefit. Absolutely, and that's why I said this is where the law is. Take, for example, the initial discussion on what constitutes a reasonable contract of carriage by contributor Ruth Hosking, who writes that, quote, "It is often easier to consider what constitutes a reasonable contract of carriage by looking at examples of where contracts have been found by the courts to be unreasonable." A fair point here, I think, and further explained by illustrative examples from cases. And I like the amount of case law. I think it wasn't too big, wasn't too small, just about right. Similarly, useful analysis and logical conclusions carry on throughout the book, which is divided into some 16 chapters, which together cover a wide spectrum of topics, from paperless trade to consignees' rights to the Rotterdam Rules to containerised goods, and how about letters of indemnity for delivering without a bill of lading. So you've got a lot there which should help you if you've got a particularly knotty problem you need some advice on. Also check out the chapter entitled Islamic Letters of Credit, Square Pegs in a Round Hole, and also have a read of Lending on Waybills and Other Documents, Banker's Dream or Financier's Nightmare. As you may infer, this book offers a lot to think about, and I think they've been courageous in trying to deal with some of the really big issues that we've got to face in this decade, certainly, and this coming century. Let me conclude by saying it's not unfair to say that commercial lawyers as well as shipping lawyers will find this book as a refreshing as well as an enlightening read. Also a useful work of reference. The 7 appendices, for example, present over 100 pages of key legislation, including the Rotterdam Rules, the Hague-Visby Rules, the Carriage of Goods by Sea Act 1992, and the Insurance Act 2015, a very important piece of legislation. As you would expect, the book provides tables of cases and of statutes and of statutory instruments. And of course, for practitioners seeking a variety of timely comments on contemporary problems in international trade law, this book is a valuable resource. It's a must if you practice in that area. Certainly if you're doing exams in that area, as I did, I think this is a publication that certainly you must know about it, and you must have some general idea of the working concepts in it. The publication date is cited at 2016, and I'm recording this in the autumn 2016. So it's a year on from the generation of the concept of bringing this book into publication. There's the front of it and the side. You just open it in the middle. Do I want my documents back? That's a lovely question. Right in the middle, I opened that without looking. A word on the use of letters of indemnity in respect of discharge of cargoes without presentation of bills of lading, which I mentioned earlier. And it refers to a very case in the Erin Schultz matter. Then you've got various other things. There's a judgment covering that case and so on. So you see, it's very logically set out. it's actually quite an interesting read. And perhaps if you're not involved in this area, you wouldn't be that interested, but I found it quite an interesting read. The case law is always fascinating. When I first started looking at maritime law, I did find it absolutely fascinating. Right at the end, I'm just going to refer to the Insurance Act 2015. That's in the appendices. Extremely helpful to have that on your fingertips. And just reminding you again, that's the extent now of the law library. It is growing, and I'd like to thank everybody very much indeed for what they've done. It's an extremely helpful new book. Thank you to all. Bye-bye.